Last week, I silenced my 7-year-old at dinner. It wasn't a dramatic moment. Nobody yelled, nobody cried. It was just a normal dinner. He wasn't being rude. He wasn't being disrespectful. He was just excited, really excited. And in 1 second, with a single gesture, I taught him that excitement can be dangerous. I didn't mean to. I didn't even think about it. It was automatic, instinctive, because I've been trained for this my whole life. For years, I thought I had a confidence problem. I wondered why I couldn't speak up in meetings, why I stayed silent when I had something to say, why I felt small in spaces where I should feel legitimate. But actually, I don't have a confidence problem. I have an authority problem. More specifically, I was trained in a system where questioning authority was dangerous, where speaking without permission was a transgression. And I carried that training, that programming, into places where silence doesn't protect you, where silence punishes you. So tonight, I want to show you how that happens. Not through psychological theories, not through statistics, but through 3 moments. Before we begin, you need to understand something. In a lot of cultures, especially homes shaped by tradition, by religion, by family history, authority functions vertically. It's simple, it's clear. Elders speak, children listen. Order matters more than individual expression. Respect manifests through obedience, not through dialogue. And that system, it's not stupid. Really, it's not. It's existed for millennia for good reasons. It creates stability in uncertain environments. It preserves hierarchy in complex communities. It makes families function, especially large multi-generational families. In that system, everyone knows their place. Everyone knows when to speak, when to be silent, when to obey, when to lead. It's predictable. It's even reassuring. But here's the thing. Here's what nobody tells you. Systems don't travel well. They don't transport easily from one context to another. When you move from a vertical system, where respect means obedience, to a horizontal system, like most Western workplaces, like most modern schools, like most collaborative spaces, the same behavior gets read completely differently. What looked like respect, what made you seem mature, wise, well-raised. Now in this new system, it looks like you're invisible, passive, without opinions, without initiative. And nobody explains this to you. Nobody says, hey, the rules have changed. What worked there doesn't work here. They just expect you to figure it out on your own, except you don't figure it out because the rules you learned are carved deep, very deep. All right. Story 1. Dinner table. Last Tuesday. A normal evening, nothing special planned. My family is gathered. My wife, my kids, my mother-in-law, who came for dinner. It's pleasant, relaxed. We're talking about our days, what happened at school, at work. And Michael, my son, he's 7. He's mid-sentence. He's telling us enthusiastically about this Lego spaceship he built at school today. A group project. He was the team leader apparently. He's proud, so proud. His hands are flying around while he talks. He's showing us with his fingers how they assembled the pieces. His voice is rising gradually. He's getting more and more animated. He's excited, authentically, beautifully excited. And then my mother-in-law, who's sitting across from him, asks a question. A simple question about dessert or something. Nothing urgent, just a polite, normal question. Michael keeps talking. He didn't even hear her. He's too absorbed in his story. And that's when it happens. I feel it before I even think about it. Before I make any conscious decision. My jaw tightens. My body stiffens slightly, and I raise one finger, a single finger, without even looking at Michael, without saying a word. He stops, immediately, mid-word, not at the end of a sentence, mid-word. The whole table goes quiet. My wife looks up from her plate and glances at me, a look I know well, a look that says, "What did you just do?" Michael looks down. He puts his hands calmly in his lap. The excitement is gone, completely gone, replaced by something else, something smaller. Dinner continues, the conversation resumes, but something has changed. Something has been extinguished. Later that night, I'm putting him to bed. It's our routine. I read a story, we talk a bit about the day, and then he falls asleep. But tonight, he's quiet. Really quiet. Unusually quiet. He's not looking at me. He's staring at the ceiling. I ask him what's wrong. If he's sick, if he's tired, if there's something he wants to talk about. He stays silent for a long moment. Then finally, in a small voice, he says, "I forgot to wait my turn at the table." He says it like a confession, like he'd done something wrong, like he needed to apologize. And there, in that dimly lit room, with my 7-year-old son apologizing for being too excited, I realize something that hits me like a punch. He didn't forget to wait his turn. There was no turn to wait for. He was just telling his story. He was just sharing his moment. But me, I taught him. In a single gesture, in a single second, I taught him that his excitement needs to be controlled. That his enthusiasm needs to wait for permission. That his joy needs to be paused for authority. Because 25 years ago, maybe exactly 25 years ago, I was 7 too. I was sitting at my grandmother's table, a big wooden table with the whole extended family, the uncles, the aunts, the cousins. And I had my hand raised, my right hand held high, waiting for permission to speak, permission to ask a question, permission to exist in the conversation. That permission never came. Someone else spoke, then someone else. And my hand came back down. And I learned the fundamental rule. Adults speak, children listen, children wait. Interrupting equals disrespect. Speaking without permission equals arrogance. And that rule, it worked perfectly. In that system, in that house, but at my dinner table, at my table, in my house with my kids, in a completely different world. Michael wasn't interrupting anyone. He wasn't being disrespectful. He wasn't defying authority. He was bringing his best moment, his brightest moment of the day. And he wanted to share it with us, with his family, with the people he loves, and me, without thinking, by pure reflex, by pure programming. I taught him to put it away, to set it aside, to control it, to wait for permission to be fully himself. I didn't teach my son manners that night. Manners are important. Respect is important. But what I did, that wasn't it. I transmitted a rule, an old rule, a rule from a system he doesn't even live in. A rule that might serve him in some contexts, but will suffocate him in others. And the worst part, he won't even know why. Story 2. This one's different. This one's not about religion, even though it happens on the way home from church. It's about what happens when authority shuts down conversation before it even begins. My daughter Sarah, she's 11 now. It's the age when questions get deeper, more complex, more uncomfortable sometimes. We're driving home from church. It's a normal Sunday afternoon. The sun is shining. The radio is playing softly in the background. Everything is calm. And then, out of nowhere, Sarah asks from the back seat, "Dad, what if the pastor was wrong about that story he told today?" It's not an aggressive question. It's not a provocation. It's pure curiosity. It's an 11-year-old trying to understand the world, trying to make sense of what she hears. But me? My hands tighten on the steering wheel. I feel my back stiffen. And I don't even think. The words come out automatically, like they were already programmed in me. We don't question what's taught at church, Sarah. We listen and we learn. That's how we grow in faith. My voice is calm, measured, but firm. Very firm. The kind of firmness that leaves no room for dialogue. She goes quiet, completely quiet. She doesn't say another word for the rest of the drive home. 15 minutes of total silence. That night, I can't sleep. I toss and turn in bed. I stare at the ceiling. I replay the conversation over and over in my head. And suddenly, I hear it. Not with my ears, but in my memory. I hear my father. I hear his voice in my response to Sarah. Word for word. Tone for tone. Firmness for firmness. When I was a child, in the house where I grew up, questions weren't innocent curiosity. They were challenges, tests, signs of doubt. And doubt? Doubt was dangerous. Asking a question about the Bible, about church, about what the pastor said, that wasn't seeking to understand. It was questioning spiritual authority. And questioning spiritual authority wasn't safe. Never safe. My father, when I asked those kinds of questions, didn't say, "That's a good question, son. Let's think about it together." He didn't say, "I don't know. Maybe we can talk to the pastor about it." He didn't say, "What do you think?" No. He said, with that same firmness I used with Sarah, "God said it. It's in the Bible. That settles it. End of conversation. Period." No space for dialogue, no space for exploration. The message I got again and again, year after year. Questioning upward isn't thinking. It's not growing intellectually. It's not developing critical thinking. It's disobedience. It's lacking faith. It's being dangerous. And it wasn't even really about religion, I realize now. It wasn't God forbidding my questions. It was a system where authority couldn't be questioned, where certain subjects were marked off limits, where certain curiosities were punished, and when authority can never be questioned, when simply asking why or what if is treated as a transgression. Curiosity becomes dangerous. Intelligence becomes a risk. Thinking becomes something you do in secret, not openly. Sarah didn't ask me any more questions after that. Not about church, not about faith, not about the big existential questions an 11-year-old should be able to explore. Not because I answered her question. Not because I gave her satisfying reason. But because I taught her, exactly as my father taught me, that some questions aren't safe. That some curiosities lead to trouble. That it's better to stay silent. Story 3. This one happens at work, in a professional environment, far from my family, far from church, in a place where, in theory, the rules from my childhood shouldn't apply anymore. Conference room, 6 people around a modern table, laptops open, half-empty coffee cups, a strategic planning meeting. My director is sitting at the head of the table. He's a competent guy, smart, usually open to dialogue. He's presenting the roadmap for next quarter, the objectives, the priorities, the resources. And then he says something that clicks in my brain. He announces that we're going to prioritize development of feature X. The whole team will focus on that for the next 3 months. And me, I have 6 months of user research sitting right there on my laptop. Data, interviews, behavioral analyses, concrete numbers, everything. And that data says clearly, unambiguously, that feature X is the third thing our customers ask for. Not the first, not the second, the third. Behind feature Y and feature Z, which are much more critical to their daily experience. My director finishes his presentation. He looks around the table, not aggressively, not defensively, just open, receptive. He pauses. He waits, like he's really inviting reactions, like he actually wants us to push back if the idea isn't solid. Questions, concerns. Does anyone see problems with this approach? And I know exactly what I want to say. The words are already formed in my head, perfectly articulated. The data doesn't support this prioritization. Our users ask for Y and Z much more frequently. We should deprioritize X and focus on what really has impact. Here are the numbers that prove it. It's clear. It's professional. It's based on data. It's not personal. It's not an attack. It's exactly the kind of input a good manager expects from his team. But then, before I can even open my mouth, the second voice comes, that internal voice, the voice I know too well. What if you're wrong? What if you missed something in your analysis? What if he has information you don't have? Conversations with investors, budget constraints you don't know about. What if you speak and everyone looks at you like you're arrogant, like you think you know more than your director, like you're questioning his authority in front of the whole team? What if your career depends on your ability to obey, to follow, to trust the hierarchy? My throat starts to tighten. Physically, I feel it. My heart beats a little faster. My hand, which was ready to raise to ask for the floor, stays completely flat on the table, motionless. Someone 2 seats away starts nodding gently, in agreement with the proposal. No questions, no hesitations. I open my mouth, slightly, just enough to take a breath, to start speaking. The words are right there, right there. And then I close it, my mouth. I close it completely. I swallow my words. I put away my data. I make myself invisible. The moment passes. Someone else talks about logistics. The meeting moves forward. My chance is gone. And it wasn't the last time. It wasn't even close to being the last time. Over the next 2 years, this pattern repeats. Again and again. Meeting after meeting, decision after decision. I stay silent. In rooms where I have the answers. In conversations where my expertise would be useful. In moments where my data could redirect a bad decision before it's too late. And I watch. I watch decisions go sideways. Not always dramatically, not always catastrophically, but gradually. Slowly. Decisions I could have corrected. Mistakes I could have prevented. Missed opportunities I could have seized. And meanwhile, I watch my colleagues. Some less experienced than me. Some with less data. Some frankly less informed on the topics in question. But they speak. They raise their hands. They offer their perspectives. They push against ideas. They challenge assumptions. And they're recognized for it. Not punished. Recognized. Promoted. Noticed. Valued. Not because they're smarter than me, not because they have better ideas, not because they work harder, but because they don't go through this internal filter that I have. This filter that transforms every thought into a question. Do I have permission to say that? Is it my place? Will I seem disrespectful? They don't self-censor before speaking. They think something, they say it. It's simple for them. Finally, my manager pulls me aside into his office. This isn't a disciplinary conversation. He's not angry. There's no technical performance problem. My work is good. My deliverables are solid. But he's disappointed. I see it in his eyes. That disappointment that hurts more than anger. He sits across from me and says, almost with sadness, "You know what frustrates me? You're one of the most competent people on this team. But in meetings, you sound like you're in the military. You wait for permission to disagree. You wait to be ordered to share your opinion." Then he pauses, a long pause, and he adds something worse, something that still haunts me. "I know you can do better than this. I know you have more to offer, but you keep it to yourself, and I don't understand why." He was right, completely right, about everything. I could do better. I could contribute more. I could be an important voice in those rooms. I could move projects in the right direction. I could have real impact. But I couldn't show up. Not really. Not as myself. Not without a filter. Not with all my thinking, all my analysis, all my potential. Because in the system I came from, in the world where I was trained for 18 years of my life, your unfiltered thinking wasn't considered a contribution. It was considered a risk. Speaking without permission, risk. Questioning authority. And that's when you see the pattern that connects these three stories. My son at the table, my daughter in the car, me in the conference room. Here's how it works. It's simple, it's predictable, it's almost mechanical. When you're trained throughout your entire childhood to never challenge authority upward, when questioning upward is marked as dangerous, you compensate. You find an outlet. You enforce that authority downward. You reproduce it. You absorb the pressure that comes from above. You take it in. You bear it. You carry it. You say yes when you think no. You stay silent when you should speak. You make yourself small. And then you go home. You change context. You move from an environment where you're the subordinate to an environment where you're the authority. And there, unconsciously, you discharge that pressure downward toward your kids, toward the people who depend on you. I did it. The same day, literally the same day. In the morning, in a meeting, I said yes to my boss when every cell in my brain was screaming, "This won't work." I nodded. I smiled. I accepted a direction I knew was problematic. In the evening, I came home. My son asked me why about a room. A simple question, legitimate, the kind of question that deserves a real answer. And what did I say? Because I said so. 4 words. No explanation. No dialogue. Just authority. Pure and hard. Same day. Same training. Same system. Different room. That's how you become both compliant at work and authoritarian at home. Both silent in one context and controlling in another. Without even noticing the contradiction. Without even seeing the hypocrisy. It's not conscious hypocrisy. It's not bad faith. It's unexamined training. It's a system you reproduce without knowing it. It's a cycle you perpetuate without seeing it. Now, listen. To be completely clear, completely honest, obedience isn't always bad. It's not inherently toxic. There are contexts where it's necessary. where it even saves lives. Vertical authority works, and works well, in places where error is catastrophic, where there's no time for debate, where clear hierarchy makes the difference between success and disaster. The military, emergency medicine, aviation, firefighting operations, rescue operations. In these environments, you don't question the order in real time. You obey quickly, completely, because lives depend on it, and I deeply respect that. I'm not criticizing these systems. They have their place, their reason for being. But here's the important nuance. Most modern workplaces, most contemporary families, they're not combat zones. They're not emergency rooms. They're not airplane cockpits. They're not discipline systems. They're perception systems, collaboration systems, innovation systems. They don't reward blind obedience. They reward visibility, clear articulation of your ideas, the ability to express disagreement constructively, the intellectual courage to say, I have a different perspective. And modern families, they're not military units. They shouldn't be. They're supposed to be spaces where curiosity is safe, where kids learn to think critically, not just to obey, where questions are encouraged, not punished, where intellectual development matters as much as following rules. The problem is when we transport the rules from one system into another without adapting them, without thinking, without consciously choosing. So here's the final truth. The thing it took me years to understand. I didn't lose my voice. It didn't disappear. It wasn't destroyed. I'm not broken. I just stored it, carefully, systematically, in the wrong system. In a system where silence was survival, where obedience was safety, where making yourself small was wisdom. And as long as I don't recognize that, as long as I refuse to name this programming, as long as I pretend it doesn't exist or doesn't have impact, I'll keep going. I'll keep teaching my kids to stay small while expecting them to be brave, to be silent while hoping they'll have confidence, to obey without questioning while dreaming they'll become leaders. I'll keep silencing myself in meeting rooms that are literally waiting for me to speak, that need my expertise, that would benefit from my perspective, all while wondering why I don't get promoted, why I'm not seen, why I'm not recognized. The answer is simple, difficult, but simple. You can't change training you refuse to name. You can't heal a pattern you don't see. You can't exit a system you don't recognize as a system. So this week, in this conversation, together, we named it. We looked the pattern in the face. We traced the line from my childhood to my parenting to my career. We said out loud what was working silently in the background. And that's not nothing. It's the beginning. It's the first step. It's the awareness that precedes change. That's not nothing at all.
If you're listening to this and recognizing yourself in these moments, whether as the parent who silenced or the child who learned to stay quiet, I want you to know something important. It's not too late. The patterns we inherited aren't our fault, but breaking them, that's our choice. That's our power. Tomorrow morning, when your child bursts with excitement about something that seems small to you, pause just for a second. Let them finish. Let their enthusiasm breathe. And if you're the one still carrying that silence from 25 years ago, start speaking. Start small. Raise your hand in that meeting. Share that idea. Your voice matters. It always did. We can't rewrite our past, but we can rewrite the future for the next generation. One conversation at a time, one moment at a time, one choice at a time. The cycle breaks with us. Before you go, I want to hear from you. What moment from this story hit closest to home? Was it the dinner table, the car ride, or maybe a moment from your own life that I didn't even mention? Share your story in the comments below, not just for me, but for someone else who needs to know they're not alone. And if this video made you think, made you feel, or made you want to do things differently, hit that subscribe button. We're building a community here of people who are willing to look at the hard truths and choose growth over comfort. New stories every week, real experiences, real lessons, real healing. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, your voice matters.